Learner Record presentation. It's our spring presentation from the ACRL Digital Badges Interest Group. And the meeting is being recorded for people who either want to review it or who are unable to join us in real time. There we go. So this is the leadership for the year for the Digital Badges Interest Group. Myself and Kelsey O'Brien are co-conveners currently. Lorraine will be our convener next year, and Emily is our outgoing convener. So we will be doing the managing of the webinar, helping with the Q&A, wrapping up at the end, anything else that you need with regards to participating in the webinar. And we just wanted to pitch ways to connect with us prior to the start of the webinar. So we have a LibGuide that is linked to there, that also is linked to from the ACRL Digital Badges Interest Group webpage on ALA and ACRL. So from there, we have a discussion section. We do a twice a year kind of annotated bib review. And then also we have a blog site there. So if you are interested in writing a blog post about your experiences with badging or with digital credentials, we're able to post your blog post there as well. And so I wanted to give an introduction to our guest speaker for the day. So we're very happy to welcome Jeff Borher to our library group, essentially. And we know we have external library participants today, people who aren't actually working in the library. So thanks everybody for finding out about the webinar and making an effort to attend. So Jeff is the Technical Program Manager for Digital Credentials at IMS Global Learning Consortium. IMS Global is a nonprofit collaboration of the world's leading universities, school districts, government organizations, content providers, and technology suppliers, all cooperating to accelerate learning technology interoperability, adoption, and impact. Prior to working with IMS, Jeff spent 20 years leading academic and technology services in public and private universities and a public school district. So for the rest of the presentation, we're going to turn it over to Jeff and talk about the comprehensive learning record and kind of how that might be interesting or relevant to everybody. So if you have questions, feel free to write them in the chat throughout, and then we'll be able to kind of manage and moderate those and take them when it makes sense.
Well, thanks, Tori and Emily. I appreciate the invitation. First of all, can you hear me okay? All right, thank you. I would just get some indicator that my microphone and headphones are working properly. So thank you for that kind introduction and the invitation to the ACRL Digital Badge Interest Group. I've got a lot of respect for my former library colleagues at the universities. You do amazing work teaching our students, providing valuable resources, being campus leaders in a lot of different projects. And so I appreciate your interest in this topic of the comprehensive learner record. It's an emerging project and program for IMS as we work to support our members' goals and needs and interests on their campuses. So a little bit about my role as a program manager at IMS. I manage a number of our project groups around digital credentials, and that includes our work with open badges, comprehensive learner records, and some other ancillary projects. So I spend most of my working hours in this digital credentials space. And we're excited about this comprehensive learner record project because it really is an opportunity to give students a resource that helps them further their educational opportunities and helps them further their employment opportunities as well. So it sounds like my control buttons are visible on the screen. I apologize for that. I think if I hit exit, I'll lose my slides. So hopefully we won't block out too many of the critical content on the slides. But today in the webinar, I wanted to just share a little bit of information about IMS Global as an organization, what we do and how we focus on improving teaching and learning through better technology. I'll talk a little bit about our competence and deals because that helps situate this comprehensive learner project within our higher level goals and vision. And we'll do a deep dive into the CLR, and we'll try to provide as much information as possible. And at the end, there's some ways that you can get involved with this project. And I've also prepared a few discussion questions if time permits. So feel free to keep posting your questions in the chat room. I'll try to keep an eye on that. But Tori and Emily, if you want to break in anytime and get my attention to some riveting questions, I'm happy to pause and field those. So at IMS Global, as Tori said, we are a nonprofit member organization. It's a collaboration between educational institutions and technology suppliers. So our membership is over the 500 mark, and our members include K-12 school districts, State Department of Education, charter schools, and also colleges and universities, including community colleges. We have some corporate members who are interested in workplace learning, and then also our membership includes nearly 200 of the educational technology suppliers and companies. Our mission is to improve teaching and learning in a way that can scale in order to improve educational access and attainment. So we're definitely interested in projects that reduce costs to institutions and reduce costs to technology companies. We're focused on the interoperability of data and technology systems. So in a nutshell, rather than all of our campus systems and our commercial systems creating custom integrations with each other, which get very expensive to build and maintain, we create, through our members, common open standards that are available to be adopted, which reduces the costs for integration for everyone involved. So at IMS, we have a broad spectrum of initiatives within educational technology. Our Digital Credentials initiative is one of 5, and we'll be talking about the Comprehensive Learner Record today, so that's where our main focus is. But we also do work with learning tools integration, connecting learning management systems to the variety of tools that faculty and instructors use in the teaching and learning process, learning analytics, online assessment, and adaptive courseware, adaptive digital curriculum. But today it's all about digital credentials and the comprehensive learner record. So the way we go about our work is that as a member organization, we are facilitators. We bring together educational institutions with their needs and challenges and interests, and we bring the technology companies who create the solutions to those challenges and interests. We bring them to the table, and we facilitate a variety of community groups and a variety of project groups. And the deliverables are open technical standards. And we do that through a variety of online meetings, face-to-face meetings, online documentation, phone calls, hallway conversations. It's an exciting space to work in and to build relationships in. So some of the guiding principles regarding our work with digital credentials involve the learner as being the center of our work. So we believe that anything we do needs to keep the learner first and foremost in mind, that we provide the learner with tools to express themselves in a way that allows them to compete for new educational opportunities, new employment opportunities. And we believe that digital credentials are a new way to open up these doors of opportunity. So our work with digital credentials spans a very broad ecosystem, not just in higher education with colleges and universities, but also, like I said, with school districts and employers and community colleges. So that the idea is that the learner can take those achievements represented in their digital learning credentials and take them to employers and show the evidence for their learning, or take them to another educational institution and show them what they've accomplished at their previous institution. So we envision this digital credentials ecosystem where the learners are in control of their credentials. It doesn't mean that they own all of the data necessarily, but they control access so that they'll be able to share their achievements with whom they desire. We envision this ecosystem that includes employers who are looking for candidates who possess skills and competencies. And through digital technology, we can try to close that gap more than ever before. Our digital credentials span a broad spectrum of learning, from informal learning to formal education, and even employer-based workplace learning. And we believe that there's this opportunity marketplace where digital credentials can be a key to opening doors for the learners that carry these credentials with them. And so we want to try to make those credentials to be as accessible as possible in a secure manner, but ultimately allow candidates to be found based on their skills, achievements, competencies as recognized in digital credentials. So I've mentioned that these digital credentials are designed for sharing, that their competencies and skills are valuable assets that the learner should be able to share with others as they see fit. And then we're taking advantage of some of the modern technology that's available by creating systems and data that's interoperable, so that the credentials and the information they contain can be shared and discovered and mined, all towards supporting a learner's goals. So at IMS, our current digital credentials work involves three main areas, and these are actually three technical standards. So the achievement is recognized through open badges, and open badges is a technical standard for a type of digital badge. It's been adopted by all the leading digital badge platform companies, and IMS is the home to the technical standards. So we steward that and evolve it through the work of our members. CASE, over on the right side, Competencies and Academic Standards Exchange, is a standard that allows linkages to be made between badges and competency frameworks, or digital curriculum and competency frameworks. And so it's kind of the glue in many ways between objects in our digital credentials ecosystem. And today we'll talk about the comprehensive learner record that is actually a package of achievements that represent the experiences and skills and competencies of the learner. And that package can be shared, as we've mentioned a few times. We won't go into great detail in regarding open badges or CASE, but I wanted to mention them in terms of their relationship to the comprehensive learner record. And we'll take a deep dive into the CLR in just a moment and explain how badges and CASE are supported in the CLR. So to understand the history of the comprehensive learner record, you have to look back a number of years to a project that was initiated by the Lumina Foundation. They funded exploratory work around the comprehensive learner record. Both ACRO and NASPA were involved with IMS as a technology partner working on this project. There were pilot projects conducted by universities in 2016, 2017 around the comprehensive learner record. And the way IMS defines the comprehensive learner record is as a next generation of secure, verifiable digital records for learners that can contain all the nature of their learning experiences and achievements, including courses and competencies, skills, co-curricular achievements, prior learning, internships and experiential learning, and badges. So here's just an illustration of the variety of achievements that can be articulated and contained in a CLR. So I'll just pause and take a look at the chat room. I see a question about what does the badge earner do with the badge. So certainly in the badge ecosystem, those badges can be put into social media, email signatures, LinkedIn profiles. They can collect and aggregate their badges in various technologies like backpacks and share those collections of badges with whom they share. When it comes to an institutional perspective, we'll get at this in just a little bit, but if a campus is issuing digital badges to their students, those can be contained as achievement records within a comprehensive learner record. So thinking about how the comprehensive learner record, and I'll start using CLR as an acronym to make it a little simpler for me to pronounce and move through the presentation. When we think about the use cases for CLR, there's a wide variety of use cases that IMS and its members have analyzed and taken into account as we build the CLR standard. So in higher education, there's an emerging area of secondary transcripts. They come by a variety of different names. Sometimes they're called secondary transcripts. Other times they're called co-curricular transcripts, leadership transcripts, marketable skills transcripts. You may have some projects underway on your campus, and if time permits, I'd love to open up the conversation to find out about some of those projects on your campus. In many cases, institutions are also gathering data about their students' progress towards achievement of learning outcomes or competencies and skills. So there are some essential learning outcomes that are articulated at the campus level. There are learning outcomes established in academic degree programs or in schools and colleges. And the CLR can be a way of collecting and documenting student progress towards their mastery of these learning outcomes. As I just mentioned a minute ago, the CLR can also contain a record of the badges that a student has earned. So some institutions are thinking about this in a way because they want to put the badges on the transcripts of the students. And so sometimes they're looking at the CLR to be a solution for this need. In the K-12 world, many schools and districts and charter schools are looking at articulating standards-based grading, standards-based transcripts, mastery-based transcripts. The CLR is also designed to contain those types of achievements as well. And the CLR could also be used as the standard for your workplace learning record, that place where all of your continuing education or informal learning that's taken place inside the organization is tracked and documented. Okay, so when we look at the CLR specifically, there are a number of features that are built into this standard. And we have to keep in mind the purpose of a technical standard like this is that it's a blueprint that guides the development of the technology solutions. So our technology providers take the standard and use that as a guide to build their features and functionality around. And one of the roles of IMS is to test and certify products to their adherence to these standards. So we'll talk a little bit about the technical capabilities that are available through the CLR as a way of informing you about the kinds of questions you can ask your technology providers. So if you're in a stage where you're reviewing products for their features and functionality, you can look at these capabilities and say, hey, do you conform to the IMS standard for the CLR? Are you certified by IMS as conformant to the CLR standard or any of our other standards? Okay, so looking at the CLR specifically, it is a digital transcript of sorts. That's the paradigm that we're using that contains the learner's validated and verifiable achievements. So records that are published to the CLR can be constructed in a way that they're digitally verifiable using web technology, and that the records themselves are validated by the issuing organization, that they are, the issuing organization is the authoritative source of these records, and that then they can be verifiable through web-based technology. They are compatible with open badges. As I mentioned earlier, open badges can be contained within the CLR, and we're actually designing this standard to align very closely with the open badges standard in terms of the metadata that's available in the achievement record. The CLR supports both records about the mastery of skills, as well as the traditional course grade GPA type records that are on current transcripts. We've mentioned previously, these are designed for the learner to share in a way that's controlled by access controls that are common to some of our web-based applications. So we envision a way of learners to share a link that is a private link for the recipient to click on and view their CLR. And of course, the CLR is an open standard that's freely available. When it's finished, we'll get at more information in a little bit about what stage the CLR is in right now. But it is an open standard that's freely available to be adopted by our technology providers. Okay, so what is a CLR? At the heart of it is a structured data document in JSON format. So in many ways, the CLR is both human readable through the applications that are built, and it's also machine readable through the JSON data. This structure is a very granular description of the learner's achievements. And so by being machine readable, the opportunities exist for applications to be built to make the learner's achievements discoverable and shareable, of course, as we've described before. So the basic structure of a CLR is that you have a CLR that's issued by a publisher. In the case of higher education, the publisher is likely the university. The CLR document is about a single learner, a single student, and on that record are a number of achievement records. An achievement record is created by joining an issuer with an achievement type. And this issuer is making an assertion about the learner's achievement. So the issuer is slightly different than the publisher. In the case of higher education, the issuing organization could be a division or a unit on campus. It could be like Student Life or the Office of the Registrar or the College of Engineering or the University Library. But they would be the issuer of a certain achievement. So you could have digital badges that are issued by Student Life, or you could have credit courses that are issued by the Office of the Registrar. Maybe in the case of some information literacy courses on your campus, if they're non-credit, they may be issued by the library, could be in the form of a badge. But I think you understand the variety of achievements that could be included in the CLR. And this whole structure is represented in the JSON data objects themselves. So how might this look on a CLR that's human readable? It could look like something like this, where links to more detailed information is available. So in this case, the CLR does support a link to the evidence, if that's provided and if that's available, that shows the students' demonstration of their achievement, some example material, something they submitted to be awarded this achievement. So the CLR does support the links to the evidence. In this case, this link is a link out to a web page depicting the project that the student worked on. And I mentioned briefly the existence of skills frameworks. So just like your campus articulates essential student learning outcomes, industry associations, accreditation bodies articulate competency frameworks and learning outcome frameworks. The CLR supports the linkages to items in those frameworks. So this record contains not only a description of the achievement, a link to the evidence, but also a link to a competency located on a framework. And so here's an example, and I use this example to illustrate the relationship between a number of IMS standards. So here is a competency framework. This was created by the Education Design Lab. They have a program called 21st Century Skills badges, and many campuses are adopting their 21st Century Skills framework. And so this is just an example where a skills framework is expressed in a digital format called CASE from IMS, and each competency statement has a unique identifier. And so those unique identifiers can be used to provide links on something like a CLR, where a viewer of the CLR can click through and get more detailed information about what exactly is this competency. How does this university articulate what critical thinking means? So this shows the power of the IMS standards and kind of an example of those, how they're deeply connected. Okay, so we do have some examples of CLRs. I mentioned earlier that the University of Maryland University College participated. They were one of the pilot institutions. And with their technology partner, Learning Objects, they used the IMS CLR standard to create an extended transcript, a competency-based transcript for their students. And so here you'll see, and I don't want you to get too hung up on the visual display, because underneath it, it's the same structured data. And so applications could design the CLR in a number of different ways aesthetically. But this is how UMUC designed theirs. They have a degree called the Master of Business Administration, with an emphasis or maybe a certificate in organizational leadership. These are the competencies expressed on the CLR, and they included links to the evidence and progress that the student is making towards completion of these competencies. So CLRs can be representations of completed achievements or achievements that are in progress, just like they're depicted here, where this competency is labeled as mastered. Another example is coming out of the University of Wisconsin system. They created a new degree program called the UW Flex degree. And this is a competency-based degree where assessment of prior learning is used to award credit. Again, it's a competency-based degree, so it was important for them to be able to articulate the mastery of competencies in the context of a course. And so they took the CLR standard and used, with their technology partner, developed this version of a CLR. We have a number of other examples on our website at the CLR Viewer, where you can use this URL and you can pull up some sample CLR files, and they're just viewed, they're rendered in a very simple viewer application. I'm not going to jump out there and use that at this time. I don't want to mess up the slides, but you're very welcome to jot down this URL and explore that on your own time. If you search for IMS CLR Viewer, this will come up in a Google search. Okay, so getting back to the University of Maryland University College pilot project, they surveyed their students that were participating in this pilot, and the results were very encouraging. They gave access to about 2,000 students to a CLR, to the students' own CLR, and they found that of the 43% that accessed that their CLR, 70% found the content to be useful to them. 84% recommended that a CLR should be available to all students. And when they drilled down into what specifically was useful to the students, very similar to what you might find in the value of portfolios, students were better prepared to articulate their abilities and their achievements and competencies. The students also reported seeing a clear connection with employment opportunities here. They had suggestions for how to make the next iteration of the UMUC extended transcript to be more consumable by employers, and they viewed it as a helpful tool in seeking jobs. You can find out more about this entire case study on the IMS website. There's a URL down here in the corner. And I understand the slides will be provided after the webinar, so you can come back and click through as you would like. I'll just pause here and look at the questions in the chat, and I'll see if there's anything I can answer. Would e-portfolios be a part of a CLR, or is it just another named example of a CLR? That's a good question. The CLR is not designed to do things like include student reflections. Although the CLR is flexible enough to allow tools to provide ways for students to curate, rearrange their achievements, and share achievements selectively with their audiences. I think there's a lot of other functionalities of ePortfolios that are not fully supported in the CLR, but certainly there's some overlap. Lance is asking about examples of CLR compliant software. Yeah, I'll get to this in just a little bit. Learning Objects, as part of this pilot project, developed the earliest prototype of the CLR. And we also have another company called APHIS that has demonstrated their ability to generate CLRs. They're an assessment management platform. They manage program assessment activities and student learning assessment data. And they've demonstrated producing a comprehensive learner record for their students based on their progress towards the achievement of learning outcomes. So that ecosystem is developing. IMS is currently recruiting technology providers to adopt the CLR platform to work on sort of early adopter projects like we've seen here. So stay tuned. We expect there to be quite a bit of uptake in this. So if we think about our campus environments, sometimes people ask, well, where's this data coming from and how is it all managed? You know, right now, our student transcripts are being generated based on data primarily out of the student information system. And there's been a tendency to think about CLR-based achievement records to all come from the student information system, but that is probably not a realistic model. it's probably not realistic to think that our SIS will contain, say, our digital badge data or our internship experience records that might just be managed at a school or college level. So what IMS really envisions is that there will be an intermediary aggregator, a database that we're calling an achievement record store that will pull the achievement data from a number of different sources, like career services, like potentially the learning management system or student life or the library systems. Maybe you'll have a database that's tracking students' achievements in some of your information literacy learning opportunities. So it's likely that an institution may need to pull the interesting data from a number of sources, and then from that achievement record store, then produce the individual CLRs for the students. All right, so where is the CLR in its life cycle? So again, the CLR at its heart is a technical standard, and it's in a near final status. If you go to the IMS website, and I've got the links coming up in just a little bit, you'll see that an earlier version of the CLR was published. The technical work group has been refining that over the last 6 months, and we'll be publishing a second version of this standard. And currently, because it's not a final standard, it's not broadly publicly available. It's available to IMS member institutions and technology suppliers to adopt into their products right now. And once IMS certifies 2 implementations of this standard, then the IMS membership votes, and it's released as a public final standard. Again, to be broadly accessible and broadly adopted. So right now we're in the phase where we are working with these early adopter technology companies to implement the CLR into their product over the next 3 to 6 months, to build it into some of their non-production systems, their development systems, and begin road mapping the features and capabilities into their product. So at the same time, we're also looking for the next round of institutions, universities and colleges who are ready to work on a CLR-related project on their campus. And again, the way that IMS works is that we bring together those interested institutions along with their technology partners. We often have existing relationships with both, and we advise and guide and support a pilot project to adopt the standard. So we're interested in hearing from colleges and universities right now who have a project planned or intentions to launch a project in the near future. And we'd love to hear from them and see if it's a good fit for getting involved through an IMS activity. So yeah, the ideal pilot institutions will already have established a goal to offer some type of a secondary transcript, a co-curricular transcript, and they would have a willingness to participate in the use of the CLR standard. Some campuses say, hey, we can internally generate it from our own homegrown systems, and others would say, hey, we'd like to bring in our transcript provider, our portfolio provider, an existing technology partner that they have to adopt the CLR in this case. So the time is now. This is the time when the action is happening. And if you're interested in this, please just reach out to me after the webinar, and I'll follow up with more detailed information. Here's a number of resources where you can learn more about the Comprehensive Learner Record. We have a website, imsglobal.org/CLR, where you can get the latest information about the project and the documentation that's publicly available there. EDUCAUSE ELI released one of their 7 things you should know about the CLR. Their resource is available on the EDUCAUSE site. We have the CLR Viewer, as I mentioned earlier, where you can see some sample CLRs in motion. And you could also sign up for our IMS newsletter that won't overload your email box, but periodically you'll find news about the latest developments with this and our other initiatives, as well as our upcoming IMS events. So at this point, I asked Tori and Emily, are we able to open up the microphones for a bit of a discussion around the CLR? I'd be curious to hear reactions and questions.
So we can't do questions by audio because we'd have to give everybody microphone privileges.
Okay.
But people can type their questions or responses into the chat, and I think Kelsey's going to sort of moderate the chat a little bit. So if in case you missed something or
sure,
something like that. So that's the plan for the discussion.
Yep. So do we want to start with that first question then?
Sure. Let's start at the top. So at your institution, I know library staff are often in the middle of a variety of teaching and learning projects. So I'm curious to know if your campus is on the brink of offering some kind of a secondary transcript, a comprehensive learner record of sorts. Perhaps you can put a link to your campus project in the chat box for everyone to see.
And while people are kind of thinking through these questions, we did get one additional question, Jeff, asking, how does the standard address long-term persistence?
Long-term persistence. I think I might need that question unpacked just a little bit more. So Alicia, if you're able to explain just a little bit more, that would be helpful. Linda mentioned they're looking at digital badging task force. They've got task force examining badges, and CLR came out in those discussions as well.
And Alicia did follow up and asked, how would I come back to it in 15 to 20 years and use it throughout my career?
Right. So that's exciting to think about the existence of a CLR over the course of 15 or 20 years. Right now, the model is that these are institution-centric or learning organization-centric. So your time at the university, as a student, your university would publish a CLR for you that represents your achievements through that university. If you go and work for an employer, your employer may issue and maintain and issue a CLR based on your learning achievements that have taken place in your workplace setting. So there's probably going to be a need for tools that allow a person to aggregate all of these records from various sources, and that's a few steps down the road. Justin, I think this is related to your comment and question where could a platform combine multiple separate CLRs and redisplay a single aggregated CLR under a fresh publisher identity? So the way the specification is designed is the answer would be yes, the data is available for tools to sort of remix. And so I could see that being kind of what Alicia was getting at, is a tool that brings in your learning records from multiple issuers and then allows Alicia as the learner to publish a new and aggregated version of a CLR. And, some of those records, the beauty of the CLR standard is that those individual records can be verifiable if the issuing organization has provided the correct metadata in alignment with the standard. Those individual records will always be verifiable. And so there's going to be a lot of power, even in the case of remixing learning records and redisplaying them in sort of a portfolio tool that Justin asked about. Chris asked about what's the process for learning more about a pilot project, what that would look like. Just contact me, Chris, at my email address, and we can have a discussion on about that. Tracy asks, administrators at my community college have mentioned co-curricular transcripts a few times. Not sure how serious the interest is. Yep. A lot of talk. Every time we present on this, there is a lot of interest. And I think the scope of what I presented is quite broad, and it's likely that individual campuses will have a much narrower project in mind as a first step. So it could be getting digital badges into a transcript. It could be co-curricular achievements. It could be getting high impact undergraduate learning experiences documented on a transcript or on a secondary transcript. So I would suggest institutions, focus on what those narrow needs are and say, hey, we need to take a look at the CLR as a format for this new learner record. Question about blockchain. That's a hot topic that we're exploring right now. There's a few different ideas, for using blockchain. It could be that the entire CLR is stored on a blockchain. Could be individual records or a select group of the records are stored on blockchain technology. But regardless of that method, I think the CLR will be well positioned to leverage blockchain technology when the time is right, when the institutional need is clearly articulated. Alexandra mentioned at UW-Madison, there's talk about developing a CLR. No projects yet. Great. Yeah, everyone sort of sounds like they're in the similar position, right? Exploration, no projects yet. So thinking about, since this is an ACRL event, how about the role of the library in the CLR? What kinds of opportunities do you see? What are some examples of learner achievements that are related to your work as librarians that could be represented on a CLR? And also, what types of challenges do you anticipate? Maybe let's talk about opportunities first. Are there currently any library-based competencies and skills that are being tracked centrally? Linda mentions the general ed requirements like info literacy. Absolutely. Lance suggests that librarians could be a source for examples of sort of well-curated credentials, digital badges based on standards. Excellent. Right. Emily, boy, that is a home run comment right there. ACRL has some information literacy framework, skills framework. I would love to explore more about how that framework can be digitally expressed, and then badges could reference those skills and competencies that are part of the framework. That's very exciting. Yeah, it sounds like digital badges may be a way to express the achievement, and then those badges end up on the comprehensive learner record from the institution. I think that is a very rational and realistic way to proceed in this area. How about challenges? Especially putting on your library lens. Probably one of the challenges is just understanding where this information is stored. So if you have a digital badging initiative, of course, your digital badge platform has the data about the students who have received the badges, and many of the commercial providers have integration services that could feed into an institution's achievement record store. Yeah, Tracy makes a great point. In the LMS, where a lot of the student activity and assessment evaluation is taking place, there may be ways to identify events or achievements in the LMS that lead towards the issuing of an achievement, especially in the form of a badge. The comments are kind of flying by quickly on here, so I apologize if I overlook someone's comments or questions. Yeah, and I think understanding the value proposition Christopher mentioned, everyone, from faculty to administrators, program managers, to understand, and students themselves, the advantages of badges and comprehensive learner records, absolutely. And the place of student impact that I'm hearing about most frequently right now is that badges, and the UMUC pilot showed this, it gives the students another tool to look at what they've accomplished, what skills and competencies they've attained over their time at a university. They've grown so much in those 4 years in their understanding of who they are. They've done so much in their courses and outside of their courses that sometimes it's hard to keep track of everything they've actually accomplished. And so these tangible artifacts, these tangible records, not only are the actual evidence of their accomplishments, but it's a way to reflect and be able to give them a tool for explaining who they are as a person to those future employers, future educational institutions, etc.
So just a couple questions, Jeff. I think you got most of them, but you might be able to answer these quickly. Do you provide the portfolio interface, and how many pilot projects are you looking for?
Yeah, IMS is not in the business of building production level interfaces, the actual tools, but again, we work in partnership with the ed tech companies, the portfolio companies, the LMS companies, the badging companies. As they have their products, they adopt the standard and design their product to adhere to the specification. And sorry, what was the second question?
Someone was just wondering how many pilot projects you're looking for.
Oh, well, that's a great question. I think we're, in the small handful nature, probably single digits. I know we only have a couple of minutes left on the call, and this is, it's been great to hear your questions, your comments, and feedback, and I'm going to hopefully save the chat as best I can. I would be remiss if I didn't invite you to our upcoming annual conference. In San Diego, it's our Learning Impact Leadership Institute. We have a digital credentials track where digital badges and comprehensive learner records are featured prominently in that. So I want to thank everyone for your time and interest in this topic, and for the chairs for the invitation. It's always great to connect with the ACRL community. You guys do great work.
Thanks, Jeff. This is Emily. I'm here.
Hey, Emily.
I just wanted to do a quick wrap up and say this was really helpful information. It helped kind of bring a lot of questions I had kind of together, even though I knew a decent amount about the comprehensive learning record. I feel like this helped really give a comprehensive overview. And I appreciate you spending the time with us today. As far as the folks that are here, we will post the recording. Jeff, if you could send us your slides separately. We had a couple questions asking for the slides themselves.
Absolutely.
And we can disperse those to the people that registered for the event. And then just to note that we do have a LibGuide for the Digital Badge Interest Group, where we'll be posting the recording as well as other information that's relevant to this group. So thank you all for joining us today, and we will follow up with you and hope you have a great rest of your day. Oh, and Kelsey,
thanks, everyone.
The guide. Awesome.